Yes. Oh, is the mic on?
Yeah, that might be.
Is that good? Okay. Kapali Lyon. I'm the chairman of the Department of Religion at the University of Hawaii. I have a...
Can't hear.
Oh, Pili Loi. No, Havi ay ako.
Either way.
He's tall.
All right. Well, I'll forget this, so let me try this. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
You sound like a Verizon commercial. My entrance into this field of study is really quite unique, I think. I was a biblical scholar, training to be a biblical scholar at UCLA, studying Hebrew and classical languages, and wrote a book on Aramaic and the Gospels. And on a trip here with my wife, who had grown up in Lahaina, I really didn't know there was such a thing as a Hawaiian language. I saw the street names, I saw other things, and I was somewhat interested. I was a student of languages, and I thought this is one that I'll file away and maybe come back to look at. As I was working on my doctorate, I looked at that one more time, and I bought a little book in a bookstore on one of our trips to Hawaii. It was Samuel Elbert's little pocket dictionary, Puakea Elbert pocket dictionary of Hawaiian, and it had grammatical notes about Hawaiian, and it was the strangest explanation of a language I had ever seen. And I didn't know what to do with it, and I didn't really know how to proceed. I became aware that as a biblical scholar that Hawaii had a translation of the Bible, and this has become one of my main areas of research. It turns out that the Hawaiian translation of the Bible was one of the great translations of the Bible of the 19th century. Translated not from English, translated from Hebrew and Greek originals, from Aramaic text. And I thought, well, what an admirable set of missionaries this were. Most seminary graduates today simply could not do that. They have a year or two of these languages, they can dabble with them, but they really cannot sit down and work with the languages in the original. And I began to wonder, as I read through Hawaiian appraisals of the translation, that literate, eloquent Hawaiians began to praise the language, that this is eloquent Hawaiian. Some saying this is the model for many of us of Hawaiian, and many elders saying this is how they learned their Hawaiian. And I began to wonder, how is it possible that a group of New England missionaries, without dictionaries, without grammars, without language courses, without ever having looked at a Polynesian language, could produce an elegant translation of the Bible? Well, the answer was they couldn't. And it turned out that there was a much greater story behind it. And part of that story is what interests me about this particular collection. If you look at the subtitle of my PowerPoint here, it says, "A Momentary Embrace." I look at Hawaii, and particularly the 1820s, maybe to the 1840s or 50s, as two planets circling around different stars. A planet from New England comes and makes an elliptical orbit, comes out at a certain point and swings back. A planet from the center of the Pacific Ocean comes around and swings around. And for just a moment in time, for a few years, those orbits cross. And we don't have a cultural collision. Cultural collisions we think of as wars and difficulties. We have a cultural embrace. A union of purpose between two remarkable generations of people. These generations include the Hawaiian Alii. These were Kamehameha's intimate circle of friends. There were a lot of Alii in Hawaii, but the ones connected to Kamehameha formed the ruling circles. They were the most educated people in their country. They were ruled with absolute power. They recognized that Hawaii was in trouble in many respects. Hawaii had entered a world that it knew nothing about. For 1,000 years, we don't know exactly how long when people first came to Hawaii, but for perhaps 1,000 years, Hawaii had been a land and a rule to itself. It had survived fine, it fed itself, it had a working society, and now it was faced that there were empires out there. There were hungry people ready to come to Hawaii and to take advantage of it. How was Hawaii to deal with this? These chiefs, on their own, without really input from elsewhere, made a decision that Hawaii's solution came through religion and education. That religious reform began in 1819 when the Kamehameha Circle, right after he died, decided that it was time to break with the old religion. Not entirely, not in every way, but in significant ways. And they decided that education, knowing about the world out there, was going to be an important way to do this. Now, right at this time, as missionaries let us know endlessly, that by God's hand they believed that right into this vacuum, they sailed right in. They were young, white, remarkably educated idealists from New England. We look at the pictures of the missionaries and we see these bearded, grizzled folks. When they came here, they were young people in their 20s, the oldest in their 30s. They came, they had the elite educations of their time. As I mentioned, the seminary graduates were comfortable in many languages. They could read Greek, they could read Hebrew, they could read Latin. Many of them could speak French. They had bachelor's degrees, which maybe 1% of the American population was getting at this time. And then they had a graduate degree, which virtually, it would be hard to go down to the zeros to find out how many Americans were doing that at this time. They were not country rubes in the sense who had decided to go preach the gospel to a church. They were remarkably skilled, educated folks. They came to Hawaii with no political power. They had no means of accomplishing anything. They had to ask to stay. They had to get permission for everything they did. They really had trouble feeding themselves, as the records that Tom spoke of earlier came to show. And they decided that what they wanted to do was to bring the gospel and the Bible to Hawaii. Their solution was religion and education. And it is in this nexus of religion and education that two remarkable sets of people, neither one who could accomplish what they wanted to accomplish, met for this period of time in this momentary embrace. Each accomplishing goals, in some degree separate from each other, but forming alliances, sometimes political, sometimes religious, sometimes with some animosity, sometimes with great friendship, but together for a time in history to accomplish the same purposes. Now, we often think of missionaries as coming to Hawaii to erase the previous religion, and I do believe that New England missionaries did come to erase the previous religion. I don't believe that that's how the Alii saw it, and I think some of this is reflected in the collection we're going to look at here, or that we were going to talk about for a minute. That Hawaii had a tradition of foreign priests bringing in religious views, of establishing new customs, but all of this being mediated by a group of priests, kahuna, appointed by the Alii, but in the end moderated and run by the Alii. They brought in excuse me, I'm partially blind, excuse me if I have to bend down and read my own slide. The new religion said, where does the word of God come from? The old religion it was moderated through prophets, through priests, through the ancient teachings, through kapu. The new religion said it was in the Bible. The old religion talked about what were who were the mediators of religion. They were the kahuna pule, or the kahuna. Well, guess who the mediators of the new religion are? They borrow that exact term. They are now the kahuna pule, the kahuna of worship and of prayer. Who really mediates and runs things and decides what shape religion is going to take? It is the Alii. Now, for many years, and I think in some of the history of Hawaii that needs much to be rewritten, the conversion of Hawaii has been looked at as a missionary venture, a missionary success. If we look at it from another side, we can see that the same group of missionaries who came to Hawaii here, with the same skills, and now somewhat fluent in Hawaiian, a subgroup of them sailed down to the Marquesas, a language very close to Hawaiian, a culture very close to Hawaiian, and they failed miserably. They were run out of town. They achieved almost no converts. They had no success because there was no desire of the people to enter into the world that they were bringing. Hawaiian chiefs decided that Christianity was going to be the religion. If you wanted to be a good Hawaiian, what do? What does a good Hawaiian do? A good Hawaiian does what the chief says. There's one reason, I think, simply, why Christianity had the immediate success that it did. Chiefs were saying, this is who we are. This is now our identity. So while it was missionaries bringing the message, it was the Alii who were commanding it. The letter of Ka'ahumanu that Puakea and others have talked about is, to me, a remarkable piece of literature. This is Ka'ahumanu, who is not taking her place as the mission child. She has taken her place alongside the great heroes of Christian faith of her time. She does not present herself as your faithful learning student, I'm just so grateful. She takes her place as a voice of Christianity in the world. This is our faith. This is who we are. This is what our people believe. This is who I am. She is not taking a subsidiary role, a secondary role. It is a commanding role. It is the role of a woman who has decided that she is a Christian and that she is promoting it. It is entirely become her own. And then we have a new set of kapu, and in some ways that word continued to be used. We have the mare, the Christian marriage. We have the sabati, the Sabbath. We have a new definition of pono, but the vocabulary used in the new religion is the same, except for a few exceptions like sabati. It is the Sabbath, the same vocabulary that was used by traditional Hawaiian religion. So what we have in this remarkable nexus, this momentary embrace, is two groups of people who have grown up to believe that religion is a matter of life and death. In traditional Hawaii, religion is life and death. There is only one punishment for breaking a kapu of a god. It's death. In the missionaries who come from Hawaii, they've met people who are very different, who look different, who talk different, who think different, and yet for them, religion is of that same importance, a matter of life and death. Now, what comes about from this is palapala, the creation of the system of literacy. I'm going to skip a number of slides. I know what time it is too, and you've been very patient for staying so long. One of the important features of the new religion is Baibala, the scripture. In fact, its original name in Hawaiian is Palapala Hemolele, the perfect writing, perfect text. For Protestant missionaries, there is only one way for Hawaiians to become good Christians, and that is through an ability to read the Bible. And so schools, reading, writing become absolutely essential. In these first 10 years, we see remarkable examples of it. Its growth, I'm going to skip through here. Here, for example, is a letter from Liho, Kamehameha's son. It is written in absolutely bizarre orthography. Those of you who can read Hawaiian will see that it doesn't look like we would expect it to look. Spellings are different, word joinings are different, word divisions are different, punctuation is virtually non-existent. And yet the expression of this letter is, the point is that we started the religious reform. Before Mr. Bingham, before Mr. Thurston, we started it. My father had wooden gods. I got rid of them. We're continuing on. This is ours as much as it is. And thank you for sending the teachers. That's a big help. But this is the collection itself is a wonderful documentation of this remarkable period. Approximately 200 letters, again, depending on who you want to count, written by a rather wide-ranging group of Alii, from all the scale, from Royal Alii, from Mo'i, starting with Liho through Liho'olani, Alii Nui, people who weren't going to be ruling chiefs, but were placed in very high positions. Kalani Moku, Ka'ahumanu, of course, perhaps the most significant. And then Alii who had been elevated to high positions by the Kamehameha family. A few Alii who we know to be Kaukau Alii, a lower grade of Alii. We can't identify a lot of them because not everybody tells us that much information. Ione EE is clearly marked up. And then a few others who Alii status would probably be harder to identify, to nail down. And then, of course, one letter, which is by missionaries who are not Alii at all. The recipients are primarily a missionary audience. So we have 99 of this, or almost half, maybe half, of this set of letters is aimed to the business manager of the mission, Levi Chamberlain. We have a number who are written to his successor as the business manager and the head of the Royal School. So a lot of missionary recipients. There are a number of letters, and I find these the most precious of the collection, of letters written from Hawaiians to Hawaiians. One of the reasons for this is because when the Bible translation was made, when the missionaries whose Hawaiian was anything but perfect at the time wanted to pick words for the Bible, they went to letters from Hawaiian chiefs to Hawaiian chiefs. This is the grammar. these are the words that we would use, and then presented their very rough drafts to Hawaiian chiefs and advisors to turn it into good Hawaiian. But anyway, we have, for the most part, we have missionary recipients and some Hawaiians. There are a few non-mission foreign recipients. We have 4 letters to the Kikumu, Hawaii, some of these to L.H. Gulick, who was the editor at the time, and then an interesting letter regarding French priests. Some of the Hawaiian recipients is kind of like it's an all-star list of the time. These are the people who shaped the history of the particular period. I won't know them, but if you know your Hawaiian history, you'll know that there's a great many of them on there. These are the writers who contributed. We have over 40 letters by Kikumu. Now, most of them are, I'll talk about the types in a minute, are very simple and very short. 25 by EE, my number is because when I was looking at it, I thought Kanina was EE, but Alohalani probably can tell me more about that than I came up with on my own. A number of other writers, these people who have contributed 5 or more letters make up the great bulk of the collection. And then there are a number of letters that are written by individuals, and most of them fairly famous. These S.P. Kalama letters that Ron spoke of are some of my favorites. As a biblical scholar, he has one where he met a group of women coming down from Lahaina Luna who he compares to Pharisees and Sadducees. He talks about why this one are Pharisee and why this one is a Sadducee. And as a professor of religion, he wrote another one that talks about world religions, in which he mentions foreign deities. All of them, of course, why these religions are wrong. It's an 1838 position of religion taught by Calvinist missionaries. But he mentions a number of gods and religions and practices. The types of letters that we find in it, the most common type is one that I think most of us consider kind of boring, and yet I find it remarkably significant. They are called the Po'aha letters. Po'aha is Thursday in Hawaii. On Thursday nights, there were special meetings for those who were going to become church, who wanted to become church members, who wanted to become baptized, and who wanted to move on. What I want to say about those is what's significant about those is who was deciding who was going to do this. It turns out it was Hawaiian chiefs. Hawaiian chiefs would look at people in their groups. Many of them were teaching their own groups. Many of them had their ohua, their attendants. Many of them taught their own classes. And they would write, "Dear Mr. Chamberlain, these 2 women and this man want to go to Po'aha. I can verify their character." Or, "Mr. Chamberlain, Aikake wants to come and become a member of the Po'aha group," meaning eventual baptism and church membership, "but his lifestyle is not volleyball. He's not ready for this yet." And these kinds of evaluations. And what it tells us is that who's really deciding who church members are going to be? You have to pass through that filter of Alii choice to get into this meeting before you can become considered for this. Other types are bills, payments, checks. One particularly interesting type that illustrates the relationship between the chiefs and the mission are common requests for material goods. I don't have a vest. I need a black vest. I can't find one that doesn't fade in water. Send me a black vest. Or, "Chamberlain, I need $20. Send me $20. I need cloth. The cloth I have is torn. Prince Lot needs shoes." This kind of back and forth, and most of them they expect a price, tell me what the price is, and I'll pay. This is a large body of this, and we would think that these kinds of letters are maybe not particularly interesting or useful, and yet, for that voice that we were talking about, if we realize that most Hawaiian history has not really looked at the details of perspective from Hawaiian writers, these are the ones that really fill out the history for us. What kind of goods are available? What kind of prices are being charged? What's in the stores? What's not in the stores? What's economic life? Not life for chiefs. These are the tools, the building stones of basic history. Then, of course, we have narrative events, the Buckle Affair on Maui, the Paulet Affair with Lord Paulet, and the annexation of the language. And I'll stop with this. The interest of the collection, or one interesting part of the collection that I find particularly intriguing, is that this documents the oldest written Hawaiian that we have. We have some samples of people who were not fluent in Hawaiian, who got stranded in Hawaii and tried to write down a few lines of what Hawaiian sounded like. It's not particularly useful. Now we have native speakers taking this new alphabet and writing out in their own language. We find words, grammatical occurrences, syntax that simply are not documented. If you went to the Hawaiian language dictionary, for example, look to the one I have under lexicon, it says ina mai. I ran into that 5 different times in these letters. And it seemed like it should mean something like here is. And it became very clear. That's exactly what it means. Here is. But that is not in any Hawaiian dictionary to this day. Right? We find usages of words, usages of verb markers, things that we simply don't expect. Hawaiian grammar needs to be rewritten as much as history in some respects, so that we see the full picture of the language, including these particular early pieces. So I'm going to put those sides. See here, these are some of the uses of the collection. We can use it certainly for history, for documenting events, for documenting economy. We can use it for documenting letters. We have here something that is so rich, the kind of thing that we just need. This is a beginning. We have these 200 plus letters. This is a treasure trove for anybody who really wants to get down and see what was going on in Hawaii, what was happening from the perspective of the people who were making the Hawaiian church, who were making the Hawaiian kingdom. We want to look at the language. We want to see how the language was that they spoke. What did we change from that? When I first started the Davida Mall project with my colleague Langos, we have a 2-volume, a little plug here, we have a 2-volume edition of David Malo coming out with UH Press shortly. We found out that the Hawaiian we spoke was substantially different than the Hawaiian that they spoke. And we had to learn from scratch, not only how to identify their writings, but what in the world were they saying in such terse and economical ways. I think all of us, those who study Hawaiian, can certainly benefit from this. A collection like this, it would be wonderful to see the same thing done over at the Bishop Museum, the same thing done at the archives. We have treasures lying about on the ground, waiting to be picked up. And I thank you folks in every way. Thank you, Puakea, and the Mission House for providing this. Is a rich resource for us all. I'm going to skip down to my last slide here. So thank you all. Thank you, Tom, the Mission House for. I'm sorry I didn't use the right corrected name there. My own way. Puakea and the translators and workers. This is a rich fund. Much appreciated. And also, and last of all, thank you for you. We live in a unique place. It has a unique history. This isn't Maine or Nevada or anything else that has a connection. It is a place whose borders were defined by the Pacific Ocean, that created a unique civilization whose history is unlike any other place in the world. And I'm thrilled to see so many folks coming out to show such interest. Thank you.